Welcome to the Stitches and Stories Studio Podcast, where we talk about writing, creativity, and the path from first draft to first reader. I'm your host, Millie Story, although you may know me by my pen names Melissa L. Story or Lynn Story. Before we dive too deep into our technical discussion today, let me tell you a little bit about my author journey. As many authors did growing up, I wrote at a young age poetry and short stories. By the mid-1990s, I had expanded my skill set into novel-length writing and had the idea of maybe publishing my work. Now, in the 90s, the only way to get published was through traditional publishing. There were a few authors out there finding their way around doing it themselves, but they were the rare exception. So I began on the normal track of sending out query letters upon query letters upon query letters. And if I was very, very lucky, I got a rejection letter in return. So after a while, I kind of gave up on that and decided best to focus on going to college and starting a career and that sort of thing. So I spent a lot of time doing that, although I often tried to find jobs involving writing, technical writing, developing software manuals, translating software manuals into everyday speak for the end user, that sort of thing, editing jobs where I could. So fast forward to 2016, I was still writing, but not publishing any of my work. And my husband suggested that I look into self-publishing after he had heard my stories of my traditional route. And so this was not something that was really on my radar at the time. So I started looking into it, listening to podcasts like you are today, and going to conferences and networking with other authors who had chosen this route for themselves. And by the end of 2017, I published my first novel at age 50, which turned into my first sci-fi trilogy. Since then, I've got 16 stories and novels published myself and in a sci-fi anthology that I responded to an open call for. And so I tell you all that to say that while my path has not been a straight line from point A of starting a book to, point Z, the end of getting it published, it doesn't have to be. Every journey is unique. My journey is unique. Yours is unique, and that's perfectly okay. You can do traditional publishing. You can do self-publishing, which is what I still do, and that's okay. And all of those journeys, regardless of what your end goal is going to be different. It's going to be unique to you. So I want to help you a little bit here, if I can, about getting you started on that path and kind of helping you find your way, being that guiding voice that I received when I was getting started and met some wonderful, wonderful authors who were always willing to share their time and knowledge and experience with me. So I'm hoping I can do that for you as well. Now, since I published my first book in 2017, 8 years ago, so many things have changed. So much has evolved in the industry, self-publishing, even in traditional publishing. There are so many more tools out there that didn't exist when I first got started to help you. And I'm not talking just AI, although that is a tool, but that's a subject for another day. But just networking opportunities. I mentioned conferences. These don't have to be big national conferences, although if you can go to one, that Author Nation is a fabulous place to start. But look around in your local city, your region. There may be smaller conferences that you could attend. Meeting up with local authors is always a huge help. It's a little bit easier because maybe you can gather up at a local coffee shop and have a chat afterwards, maybe one-on-one or 2 or 3 of you at a time, and kind of get together to encourage each other. Everybody, like I said, has got a different path, different ideas, different skill sets, and everyone's at a different place in their journey. So there's always something that you can learn from another person, and they can learn from you as well. So back to the tools that are now available, and some of the ones that we'll talk about in depth later on in other episodes. But things I want you to think about is anything that helps you stay organized. Sitting down and writing the next great American novel is everyone's dream, but the mechanics and the logistics of that are quite a bit different. I had the same thought when I wrote my first book. I didn't have any outline nothing. I was pure discovery writer. I sat down and I started typing, and this story just poured out of me. And, I had this huge tome that was way too long, needed to be structured, needed to be cut. I needed to fix plot holes, character names that changed midway through the book because I couldn't remember what I named them before, and I hadn't wrote any of that down anywhere. So that was a very painful lesson to learn, even though I was not someone who was thrilled by the idea of outlining because that just seemed too rigid. But you do need to be able to keep track, at least of some basics for your story. And one of the tools that I found that's still out there today is a program called Plottr. It's not very expensive. And I know when you're starting out, you have to kind of watch your money and watch your pennies on what you want to spend your money on. But I would recommend this tool, at least for a while. You don't have to use it, at least to help you get started, because it helps you with seeing the story beats visually. And I found that to be a huge help. When you take classes and you learn about story beats and what that all means, sometimes it's a little hard to imagine how that looks in your story. So something like Plottr can help you out. They have a number of templates now, and so you can choose the style that best meets you. I personally, the 3-arc story beat sheet, I learned that from Jay Thorne, and I was just stuck with it. It always works for me. I've tried using different beat sheets depending on the genre I'm writing, but I always go back to that one. And the other cool thing about this program is that you can keep a running list with character sheets of all your characters. Now, these character sheets can be as detailed or as scant as you want them to be, but it at least helps you keep track, and also prevents you from naming too many characters that start with the same letter. And that sounds kind of silly, but you'd be surprised how easy it is to do, and you don't even realize it. And suddenly you've got 3 characters and all of their first names start with a B or, a W or something like that. And so it can get, a little confusing and a little confusing when you say it out loud too, because you've got all these similar sounding words put together. So it's good for that. Now, I don't get any kind of sponsorship from Plottr. I'm telling you this purely because it is a product that I used and it really helped me out, especially when I was first starting out. And if you want to hear more about that particular experience, I did have an interview with Plottr a few years back, so you can find that on YouTube on their webpage. Plottr is Plottr. You can just search YouTube under Plottr and Melissa L. Story, and that interview should come up, and it will give you a little bit more idea of what a mess I had made of my first book and how it helped me to straighten that out going forward and finish out the trilogy. Some other programs that are helpful, some people use Atticus to help them with their writing. It has a built-in grammar and spell check to kind of help you keep track as you're going along. So you don't want to do too much self-editing, but sometimes too many mistakes I find to be distracting. If I know I spelled a word wrong and it's underlined in red, it bothers me to see that up there, but that's probably just me. Some people use Word. There are all different programs out there that you can use. You can go straight into Reedsy, which is a wonderful resource for other reasons, but you can write directly into that. ProWriting Aid or Autocrit are 2 other programs I would encourage you to invest in. You don't necessarily need them both. They do similar things, but they do them a little bit different. I actually use both of them. I find that Autocrit helps me more with the developmental editing side of things, and ProWriting Aid is leans a little bit more to the line editing. Both of them offer sort of a beta read or critique of your work, either by chapter or the entire project. They offer, free classes, online, webinars, things like that. So both of them are worth the investment. They are an investment, and they have different tiers that you can try out. And they both do offer a free trial. So I would encourage you to check those out and see which one works best for you. I might encourage you to do, even after the free trial, the month-to-month basis, just to make sure. You don't want to sign up for a whole year and then find out 3 months in you actually don't care for that tool, regardless of which one it is, whether or any product, not just editing software, but any software, you might want to consider doing that, because the free trials are usually only 7 days, and honestly, I don't think that's long enough to try it out. If it were something that was more technical, a number crunching software, maybe, but something that's more of a creative software, I need more time than 7 days to figure out if I'm going to like it or not. So those are two that I would encourage you to help get you started. There's some others I'll talk about later on in future podcasts, but we want to focus on getting you started and getting those words on a page, or if you've got words on a page, what to do with them now. So those 3 products I would suggest looking into. Again, I get no sponsorship. I get nothing in return. These are just products that I have either used in the past or am currently using, and I find them to be very helpful. And you can type directly into either one of these products, or any of these products, Atticus, ProWriting Aid, Autocrit, and you can then export them out into a Word document to send off to an editor or use in some other way. So, moving along. Other resources that I have used in the past, and 1 or 2 that I still use, are podcasts. Now, when I first started listening to podcasts back in 2016, a lot of those have gone by the wayside. They'd been running for a long time, and then they kind of, the host or the authors had moved on to other projects. But one of those that has continued on during this entire time is the Creative Pen podcast. And while, she talks about craft and creativity and things like that as well, podcasts I don't believe to be competition. There's enough information out there for all of us. And so, in addition to my podcast, which I'm glad you're here, I would also encourage you to listen to Joanna Penn over at the Creative Pen podcast as well. She's been doing this a long time. She's got a lot of experience as well, and she has a lot to offer, and I listen to her every Monday. So I would encourage you to find other podcasts that speak to you, that you can learn from. Everybody speaks to, the same subject of writing and creativity in a different way. We all have different perspectives, again, back to that unique journey. So Joanna publishes hers on Mondays. I publish mine on Tuesdays. Find one for Wednesday, you're all set. You got your inspiration for the week right there. And again, try different ones. Like I said, some that I listen to have gone by the wayside. Others are still there, but I've kind of moved along in my journey, kind of past what that particular podcast may have been offering. But Joanna's is one that I have stuck with, and hopefully this one will be one that you stick with as well. Okay, so down to the reason why we're here. We want to help you get some words on the page. We want to get you started on that first draft. So far, we've talked about some research, some places for inspiration, some ideas, some writing tools that you could use. But again, pen and paper work just fine too. And I use that quite a bit. I don't go anywhere without some kind of little notebook that I can take notes in. You can use a journal app on your phone to help you take notes. If you're someplace, then you get inspired and you don't have time to sit down and write, a paragraph or 2, but you want to remember it for later when you do have a quiet moment to sit down and do your writing. So there's all of those types of opportunities, and it can be something basic. Your notes app on your Apple phone, something like that. Just be mindful of there's inspiration everywhere, but at some point you need to take all of that inspiration and get it down on the page. And sometimes that first step is the hardest part for some folks. So what I want you to do, I'm going to give you a little homework, is to take 10 to 15 minutes out of your day. It can be in the morning before the rest of the house is up. If you live with others, it can be on your lunch break. It can be on the bus on the way to work. It can be at night before you go to bed. But pick 10 to 15 minutes a day. Do it for a week, same time, every day. Don't write any less. Don't write any more. I want you to pace yourself. I don't want you to get inspired on the first day and write for half an hour and put it all out there on the page and then you don't know what to do with it. So just take 10, 15 minutes, set it aside. Say you pick 6 in the morning. Get up at 6, write for 10 and 15 minutes, whatever you choose. When that timer goes off, you stop and you go and you start the rest of your day's routine. And I want you to do that between now and next Tuesday. And then we'll regroup. And I want to hear back from you during that time. Let me know how you did. Now, if you don't have anything saved up, or suddenly this homework assignment causes you a mild case of writer's block, I'll give you a little writing prompt. So, on your commute, you stop in at your favorite coffee shop, and it's busy and you're standing in line waiting, and suddenly a regular that you recognize strikes up a conversation. What is that person telling you? What are they sharing about themselves? Can you hear them well? Is it noisy inside? Write down all of these things. How do you respond? What do you say back to that person? What do you notice about that person? Their height, their weight, their eye color? What can you tell me about this person talking to you? So I want you to do that on the first day. The next day, I want you to expand on that. What happens after you leave the coffee shop? Do you see them again? Do you just forget about the conversation and go on about your day? Do you see them again the next day? How does this interaction progress, or does it? And how does it make you feel? So write about that, like I said, for 10 minutes a day, and see where you are at the end of the week and see what you have. And if it doesn't make any sense, if it's disjointed, it doesn't blend from one day to the next easily, that's okay. That's perfect, because then what you have is an outline, and you didn't even realize it. So I want you to give that a try, and I'm going to give you my contact information in a few minutes, and we can talk about it next week. And I'm sorry if you heard my dog there in the background. That's Flash. His sister just got to go outside, and he's a little upset that he didn't get to go. So I apologize. I do produce this podcast at home, so occasionally you may hear Flash in the background. Well, that's about all the time we have for today. I'm so glad again that you joined me, and let me just say I appreciate you spending this time with me. If this episode sparked anything for you, I'd love to hear from you. You can find out more about me at my website, stitchesandstories.com, Facebook, Stitches and Stories Studio. I have a group there for you to check in. Or you can reach me at Millie, Milly, at stitchesandstories.com, all one word. And also, if you found inspiration from this and you want to support the podcast, you can do that over at Substack, and just for a couple of bucks a month, cup of coffee, frappuccino if you're feeling generous, you can support the podcast that way if you like. So I look forward to hearing from you, and I hope that you join me again next week. Bye-bye.